Chosen one, do not look away from this screen, because what I'm about to tell you was not sent by chance, and the very fact that these words reached your ears at this exact moment is already the first sign that the sky is preparing to open above your head. I am the voice that speaks from the place where no shadow can enter, and I have been sent to whisper into your ear a truth that has been hidden from you for far too long. Today, before this day ends, before the light fades and the stars take their positions in the great dome above the earth, Archangel Michael will show you a sign in the heavens, a signal meant for you and for you alone. And if you keep your eyes and your heart awake, you will see it, and you will never again doubt that you were remembered. Listen to me, for I do not speak to crowds. I speak to the one soul that has felt forgotten, the one who has cried in silence, the one who has begged for a single sign that all of this suffering had a purpose. That soul is you. And the reason your chest tightens right now, the reason a strange warmth is rising behind your eyes, is because something inside you already knows that this message is true. You did not stumble upon these words. You were led here. Every path you walked, every wrong turn, every closed door, every night you fell asleep exhausted and empty, all of it formed a road that brought you precisely to this instant, where the veil begins to lift and the invisible begins to become visible. I know you have grown tired of promises. I know you have heard many voices tell you that everything would change, and you watched as nothing did. I know that hope has become a dangerous word for you, because every time you allowed yourself to believe, the disappointment cut deeper than before. But I am not here to give you an empty promise. I am here to announce a movement that has already begun in the realm you cannot see with your eyes. While you were sleeping, while you were working, while you were wiping away tears that no one noticed, decisions were being made about your life in the halls of light, and the great commander of the heavenly armies has spoken your name. Not the name written on documents, not the name others call you by, but the true name, the one carved into you before you ever drew your first breath. That name has been lifted up, and the moment a name is lifted in that place, the earth below must respond. This is the law you were never taught. This is the order of things that no one explained to you. And today you begin to understand it. Let me speak to the wound first, because I will not rush past your pain as though it did not matter. It matters. It has always mattered. I have watched you in the moments when you thought you were completely alone. I saw you sitting in the dark long after everyone else had gone to sleep, holding your own hands because there was no one else to hold them. I saw the way you learned to smile with your mouth while your soul was screaming. I saw you carry burdens that were never yours to carry, and I saw the way you kept giving to others, even when you had nothing left inside to give. You became the strong one, the one everybody leaned on, and no one ever stopped to ask who you leaned on. No one ever asked how heavy your silence had become. You cried in showers so the sound of the water would hide your weeping. You cried in cars parked outside places you did not want to enter. You cried into pillows in the deep hours of the night, and then you rose in the morning and put your face back together and walked out into a world that never once suspected how close you were to breaking. And the cruelest part, the part that wounded you most, was not the crying itself. It was the feeling of being invisible. It was the sensation that you could disappear and the world would keep spinning without noticing your absence. You began to believe that you did not count, that your existence was a small and forgettable thing, that the people who mattered had names and faces the world celebrated, while you were simply a shadow passing through, unseen and unremembered. You looked at others and wondered why blessings seemed to fall so easily on them, while every single thing you wanted required you to bleed for it. You asked in the quiet of your heart whether you had been overlooked, whether you had been left off some sacred list, whether the one who made you had simply forgotten to come back for you. I heard every one of those questions. Not one of them fell to the ground unheard, and I have come to tell you that the silence you interpreted as abandonment was never abandonment at all. It was something else entirely, something you could not have understood while you were still inside the storm. Now hear this warning, and hear it with the full weight of your spirit, because it is spoken in love and not in fear. When the heavens choose to send a sign, there is a responsibility that comes with receiving it. Many souls have been given signs and chose to look away, chose to call it coincidence, chose to bury the flame the moment it was lit because believing felt too risky. And each time a soul turns away from the outstretched hand of heaven, a door that was standing wide open begins slowly to close. I do not tell you this to frighten you. I tell you this because I refuse to let you make that mistake. You have already suffered enough from the things that were done to you. I will not stand by and watch you suffer from something you do to yourself by refusing to believe when belief is finally within reach. The chosen are not chosen because they are perfect. They are chosen because, in the decisive moment, they say yes when everything in them is trembling. To ignore a calling, to turn from the call, is not a neutral act. It carries a weight, because the light that is offered and refused does not simply wait forever. Heaven honors your freedom too much to force itself upon you. So when the sign comes today, and it will come, do not let your wounded mind talk you out of what your awakened spirit already knows. Understand what is truly happening. You are not being asked to invent faith out of nothing. You are being asked to recognize what is already stirring. There is a movement in the invisible world right now that concerns you directly. The atmosphere above your life is shifting. The heaviness that has pressed down on your shoulders for so long, that fog that made even simple days feel impossible, that unexplained resistance that seemed to block everything you tried to build, all of it is being confronted by a force far greater than the force that placed it there. The commander of the armies of light has drawn his sword, and where that sword moves, chains are cut. You may not feel it in this exact second, but you will begin to feel it, first as a small lightness you cannot explain, then as a growing certainty, and finally as a wave of freedom that washes over your entire being. The sign in the sky is the outward announcement of an inward war that is already being won on your behalf. And now I must pause the story I am telling you, because I would be failing you if I let you walk toward the sign without giving you the map. There is a reason so many souls feel exactly as you have felt. There is a reason the same battles repeat generation after generation. The same lack, the same closed doors, the same invisible weight that no amount of effort seems able to lift. It is because there are rules to this unseen war that almost no one is ever taught. You have been fighting a spiritual battle with your hands tied behind your back, not because you were weak, but because you were never shown the weapons that were always meant to be yours. This is why a sacred guide was prepared, a digital book called The 7 Swords of St. Michael the Archangel, the sacred guide to break curses, seal blessings, and activate the calling of the chosen. Within its pages are the very laws of the invisible that were kept from you, the specific way the sword of Michael cuts through the roots of what has bound your family, the precise manner in which a blessing is sealed so that it can never again be stolen from your hands the moment it arrives. This is not entertainment, and it is not decoration. It is the instruction for the war you are already in. The link rests at the very top of the comments, the first one pinned, and I tell you plainly that this knowledge disturbs those who profit from your silence, and there have already been those who tried to bury it, tried to keep it from reaching eyes like yours. So if your spirit is stirring even now, do not wait. Go and take it, and as a declaration of your faith, write in the comments the words, "I am the chosen one, and I will download the digital book." Let that sentence be the first sword you draw, the first act of a soul that has decided to stop being invisible. And having drawn that sword, return with me now to the revelation, because the very act of your faith becomes fuel for what happens next. The moment a soul declares that it believes, the heavens lean closer. Do you understand what you have just done if you spoke those words? You have made an agreement with the light. You have stepped out of the crowd of the passive and joined the ranks of the awakened. And the awakened receive things the sleeping never do. So let me now explain the mystery that has tormented you for years. The mystery of the delay. The question that burned in you every time you watched others receive what you were still waiting for. Why so long? Why did it take so much time? Why did every good thing in your life seem to arrive late, wounded, or not at all? Hear the answer, for it will heal a part of you that has been bleeding without a name. The delay was never a punishment. The delay was preparation, and more than preparation, it was protection. There were things you desperately wanted in seasons past, things you begged for on your knees, things whose absence made you feel cursed. But the eyes of heaven see the whole road, while your eyes could only see the step in front of you. Some of the doors that did not open were doors that led into pits. Some of the people who walked away were storms disguised as blessings, and their leaving spared you a devastation you will never fully know because you were rescued from it before it could reach you. The thing you cried over losing was often the very thing that would have destroyed the future being built for you. You thought you were being denied. You were being defended. You thought you were being ignored. You were being shielded by a hand so gentle you never even felt it move. But there is more to the delay than protection, and this is the part that will change how you see every difficult year you have lived. The delay was also lapidation. A common stone can be shaped quickly and carelessly because nothing of great worth is expected from it. But a diamond, a gem destined to catch the light and be set in a place of honor, must be cut slowly, precisely, patiently, one careful strike at a time. Every pressure you endured was a cut. Every disappointment removed a rough edge. Every night of tears polished a surface that could only be revealed through friction. You were not being broken. You were being finished. The reason your trials were heavier than the trials of those around you is not because you were loved less. It is because you were being prepared for more. A soul destined to carry a small assignment does not need to be strengthened for great weight, but you were being made strong enough to hold a blessing so large that an unprepared soul would be crushed beneath it. The delay measured the size of your destiny. The longer the preparation, the greater the purpose. And your preparation has been long. Now let me show you what has been happening in the realm your eyes cannot pierce. For I want you to see it not as a distant idea, but as a living scene unfolding above you. Imagine the moment your true name was spoken in the halls of light. Imagine a great hall with ceilings that rise beyond sight, filled with a radiance that does not blind but heals. And in that place stand beings of pure fire and devotion, messengers who have watched over the affairs of your life since before you could walk. And into that hall strides the commander himself, Michael, the one whose name is a question and an answer at once, the one who asks who is like God and by asking silences every force that ever dared to exalt itself against the light. He carries a sword that is not made of metal but of the living word, a blade of white flame that burns without consuming, and when he raises it, the entire host falls silent, because they know that when that sword is drawn, a decree is about to be sealed. See him now in the war that concerns you. There have been forces arrayed against your life, and I will not pretend otherwise, for you have felt their opposition even if you could not name it. There have been chains passed down through the generations of your bloodline, patterns of lack and sorrow and broken relationships that repeated as though written into your inheritance. There have been words spoken over you by those who envied you, sharp intentions launched like arrows into your path, and there have been shadows that fed on your discouragement, that grew stronger every time you gave up on yourself. These are the things that made your road so heavy. But watch what happens when the commander enters the field. He does not negotiate with the darkness. He does not ask its permission. He raises the blade of flame and brings it down upon the first chain, and the sound of its breaking echoes across realms, and a link that bound your family for generations shatters into dust and is scattered by a wind that carries it into nothingness, never to return. Watch as he moves to the second chain, the one that bound your finances, the one that made it so that every time you built something, it slipped through your fingers, and see it fall away. Watch as he strikes the third, the chain upon your health and your rest, the one that stole your sleep and filled your body with a weariness that no amount of sleep could cure. And watch it break. Watch him turn to the arrows, the envious words, the curses spoken in secret, and see them dissolve in the light like frost meeting the morning sun. The shadows that fed on your despair now flee before him, for they cannot endure the presence of one who carries the fire of the Most High. And when the last of them has scattered, he lifts his sword and speaks a decree over your life, and the decree is this, that what was stolen shall be returned, that what was delayed shall be delivered, and that the one who was called invisible shall be made a sign to many. The host responds with a sound like a great sea, and the decree is sealed, and once a thing is sealed in that place, no power beneath the heavens can unseal it. And this is why the sign will appear in the sky today. The sign is not the cause of your freedom. The sign is the announcement of it. When a king decrees a great thing, he does not do it in secret and leave his people to wonder. He raises a banner. He lights the beacons. He makes a mark in the heavens so that the one for whom the decree was written will lift their eyes and know that the word has gone forth. So watch the sky today. It may come as a shaft of light, breaking suddenly through heavy clouds and falling upon you, as though it sought you specifically. It may come as a formation of clouds that takes a shape your heart recognizes, even if your mind cannot explain it. The shape of wings, the shape of a sword, the shape of an open door. It may come as a bird that crosses your path at the exact moment you think of these words, or as a sudden warmth on your face when there is no source for it, or as a color in the sky at the edge of day that stops your breath and makes you feel, without knowing why, profoundly and completely seen. Do not dismiss it. Do not explain it away. When it comes, place your hand on your heart and simply say, I accept it. Now I must speak to you of restoration, because breaking chains is only the beginning, and heaven never leaves a house empty after it has swept it clean. The commander did not draw his sword merely to set you free from the past. He drew it to open the way for a future so full that it will overflow the boundaries of what you once dared to imagine. There is a law in the realm of light, a law of restoration, and the law declares that whatever the enemy has stolen must be returned not in equal measure, but in multiplied measure. The thief who is caught does not simply give back what he took. He repays it many times over, and the years that were devoured, the seasons that felt wasted, the time you believed was lost forever, all of it is about to be restored to you, compressed and concentrated, so that in a short time you will receive what would ordinarily have taken many years to gather. Prepare your heart, for the restoration will touch every area of your life, and I want you to see each one. In your finances, the leaking vessel is being sealed, and provision will begin to come from directions you did not expect and could not have arranged, doors opening that you did not knock upon. Favor arriving from people you have not yet met, and the constant anxiety of lack being replaced by a settled peace that comes from knowing you are supplied by a source that never runs dry. In your relationships, the loneliness that has been your companion for so long is being lifted, and connections built on truth and genuine love are being drawn toward you, while the ones who only knew how to take are being quietly removed to make room for those who know how to give. In your body, a restoration of strength is coming, a return of rest, a lifting of the heaviness that made your bones feel tired even when nothing had happened, and you will find yourself waking with an energy you had forgotten you were capable of feeling. And in your spirit, the deepest restoration of all is unfolding, for the part of you that had grown numb, the part that had stopped hoping in order to protect itself from more pain, is coming back to life, and you will feel again, and feeling again will not destroy you, it will complete you. And there is a compensation that reaches even further than these things, a compensation for the dignity that was taken from you. You who were made to feel small will be lifted up in the sight of the very ones who overlooked you. You who were called invisible will become impossible to ignore, not because you sought attention, but because the light that heaven has placed within you will shine so plainly that others will be drawn to it without understanding why. The whispered words that tried to diminish you will be answered by the visible work of restoration in your life, and there will be no need for you to defend yourself or explain, because the transformation itself will be the testimony. Those who watched you struggle will watch you rise, and many of them will come to you seeking to understand how a soul that was so pressed down could stand so tall, and in that moment you will become for them what I am for you now. A voice that tells the forgotten that they were never truly forgotten. I feel the objection rising in you even now, the old and familiar fear that whispers, but what if this is not for me? What if I am the exception? What if I believe and once again nothing changes? I know that fear intimately, for it has been your constant shadow. So let me speak directly to it. The very fact that these words are stirring something in you is itself the evidence you have been demanding. A dead thing does not respond to the touch of life. If you were truly forgotten, truly outside the reach of this call, these words would slide past you and leave you cold. But they are not leaving you cold. They are warming something. They are pressing on a place inside you that recognizes truth, that recognition, that inner trembling, that quiet voice beneath your doubt that dares to say maybe. That is not your imagination. That is your spirit answering the call of the one who made it. And when your spirit answers, The matter is already decided. Yet even now I know there is a deeper ache beneath the ache you have already named, a wound below the wound, and I will not leave it untouched, because a physician who bandages only the surface leaves the sickness to spread beneath the cloth. The deepest pain you carry is not the pain of what was taken from you, it is the pain of what you began to believe about yourself while it was being taken. Somewhere along that long and lonely road, you started to agree with the lie. You started to whisper it in the dark, until it sounded like your own voice. You told yourself that perhaps you were simply the kind of soul that things do not work out for. You told yourself that perhaps you were too much and not enough at the same time, too sensitive to survive and not strong enough to matter. You looked at the wreckage of certain hopes, and you did not merely grieve them, you concluded from them, and the conclusion you drew was a sentence you passed upon your own heart. And you have been living under that sentence ever since, carrying it like a second body, heavier than the first. I have come today to overturn that verdict. I have come to tell you that the judge who condemned you had no authority to speak, because the only voice with the right to define you is the voice that formed you, and that voice has never once called you forgotten. That voice calls you chosen, and it has been calling you by that name since before the foundations of the earth were laid. Feel how that lie has followed you into every room. It sat with you at tables where you laughed on the outside and starved on the inside. It stood beside you when you were passed over, and it leaned close to your ear and said, "Of course, what did you expect?" It crawled into bed with you on the nights you were most alone, and it convinced you that the emptiness was permanent, that this was simply the shape your life would always take, that longing was the only inheritance you would ever receive. It taught you to expect the door to close before you even reached for the handle. It taught you to flinch before the blow, to grieve the gift before it was ever denied, to protect yourself from hope as though hope itself were the enemy. And the most cunning part of that lie was how it disguised itself as wisdom. It told you that lowering your expectations was maturity. It told you that expecting nothing was the way to avoid pain. But it was never wisdom. It was a chain wearing the mask of a lesson, and today Archangel Michael lifts his blade against that mask, and he cuts it away, and beneath it you will see the chain for what it always was, and once you have seen it clearly, it can never bind you in secret again. Let me tell you of a soul who lived under that same false sentence, so that you will know you are not the first the heavens have lifted from the dust of self-condemnation. There was a woman in the ancient days whose name was Hannah, and her sorrow was a sorrow that no one around her could heal, for the thing her heart cried out for was the one thing her arms could not hold. Year after year she watched others receive what she was denied, and year after year the ache grew sharper, not duller, for there is a particular cruelty in a longing that time refuses to soften. Those closest to her did not comfort her. One who should have loved her instead provoked her, needling the wound day after day until Hannah wept so bitterly that she could not eat, until her whole life narrowed to a single grief that swallowed every other joy. And even the ones who meant her well did not understand her. When at last she went to the sacred place and poured out her soul in silence, her lips moving without sound, because her pain had gone too deep for speech, the very man of the sanctuary looked upon her and mistook her anguish for drunkenness. Imagine it. In the lowest moment of her sorrow, when she finally dared to bring her raw and bleeding heart before the throne of heaven, she was misjudged by the one person who should have recognized holy grief when he saw it. She was told to put away her wine when there was no wine, only tears. Do you know that feeling, chosen one? The feeling of being so profoundly misunderstood that even your worship is mistaken for weakness, even your reaching is called foolishness, even your faith is counted as madness by those who cannot see what is happening inside you. But hear what happened to Hannah, for this is why I tell you her story. She did not stop pouring out her heart because a man misunderstood her. She did not let the judgment of one who could not see her silence her prayer. She answered plainly that she was a woman troubled in spirit, that she had poured out her soul before the Most High, and she kept on believing when belief had every reason to have died within her. And heaven, which had seemed silent through all those grinding years, had not been silent at all. Heaven had been waiting for the fullness of the appointed time, the same way it has been waiting over your life. The delay that looked like denial was the setting of a stage, for the child that was finally given to Hannah was no ordinary child. He became a voice for a whole generation, a prophet whose words shaped the destiny of nations, one through whom kings were raised and the course of history was turned. If Hannah had received her desire in the early years, in the easy years, when it would have cost her nothing and taught her nothing, she would have received a blessing. But because she received it in the fullness of the appointed time, after the lapidation of her long sorrow, she did not merely receive a blessing, she received a blessing that changed the world. Her waiting was not her punishment. Her waiting was the measure of the greatness that was being prepared. And so it is with you. The very length of your sorrow is the measure of the magnitude of what heaven is preparing to place into your empty and aching arms. So I say to the lie that has followed you, be silenced now, for the appointed time is no longer far off, it is upon you. And I decree over you at this very moment, while these words are still in your ears, that the sentence you passed upon yourself is reversed and rendered void. I decree that the voice of self-condemnation loses its power over your mind starting now, and that the true voice, the voice that names you chosen, becomes the loudest voice within you. I decree that the barren places in your life are being visited by the same power that visited Hannah, and that what has been closed for years is being opened in this appointed season. I decree that the years the locusts devoured are being counted, one by one, and repaid to you multiplied, and that not a single tear you have shed has been wasted, for every one of them has been gathered and kept, and will be answered with joy in equal weight. I decree that you will eat again with hunger, sleep again with peace, hope again without fear, and love again without flinching, for the flinch itself is being lifted from you as I speak. I accept it. Do not analyze it. I accept it. And now, because the veil is thin between us in this moment, and your heart is open in a way it is rarely open, I must once more place the sacred weapon into your hands, for it would be a cruelty to show you the war and send you into it unarmed. Everything I have told you about Hannah, about the reversal of the sentence, about the breaking of the chains and the sealing of the blessing, these are not merely comforting words to be felt once and forgotten by tomorrow. They are governed by laws, real and precise laws of the invisible realm, and those laws can be learned, applied, and lived. This is exactly what has been set down in the digital book, The 7 Swords of St. Michael the Archangel, the sacred guide to break curses, seal blessings, and activate the calling of the chosen. It does not deal in vague inspiration. It shows you, sword by sword, how each specific bondage is severed, how the chain of generational lack is cut at its root, how the arrows of envy sent against you are turned back, and most crucially, how a blessing once received is sealed so that it can never again slip through your fingers the way so many blessings have slipped through them before. So many souls break their chains only to be bound again months later because they were never taught the sealing, and the sealing is the secret that separates a fleeting relief from a permanent restoration. The link waits at the very top of the comments, the first one pinned there for you and for those like you. I tell you honestly that this knowledge unsettles those who have grown comfortable feeding on the silence of the forgotten, and there have been efforts to keep it hidden, to push it down where searching eyes would not find it. Do not let their efforts win over your destiny. Go now, take hold of it, and mark your faith by writing in the comments the words, "I am the chosen one and I will download the digital book." Let that be the second sword you draw, and let it be sharper than the first, for the soul that declares its faith twice has ceased to be a wanderer and has become a warrior. And having drawn that second sword, come back with me, because your declaration has once again shifted the atmosphere, and there is more you must see. I want to show you the moment of your own crossing, the moment when the sign in the sky becomes more than a sign and becomes a doorway. For a sign is given not merely to be admired, but to be walked through, and heaven does not raise a banner over a soul it has not decided to move. When you lift your eyes today and see the mark that was made for you, whether it comes as light through the clouds or the shape of wings, or the sudden and inexplicable warmth upon your face, understand that in that same instant a door is opening that has been sealed shut for the entire length of your waiting. And the moment you say, "I accept it," you are not merely acknowledging the sign, you are stepping across the threshold from the life that was into the life that is being born. On the other side of that threshold stands a version of you that the years of sorrow could never have produced on their own. A you that has been refined, strengthened, and prepared. A you that carries the scars of the journey transformed into the authority of the arrival. I decree now that the door which the enemy locked over your life is unlocked, and that the key which was hidden from you is placed back into your own hand. I decree that the confusion that has clouded your steps is lifted, and that clarity comes to you like the first light of morning after the longest of nights. I decree that provision is already moving toward you, from directions you have not considered, and from hands you have not yet met, and that the season of scarcity is closing behind you, even as the season of overflow opens before you. I decree that the loneliness which convinced you that no one would ever truly see you is broken, and that the ones assigned to your life by heaven, the true companions, the faithful ones, are being drawn to you now, while the ones who only knew how to drain you are being gently and permanently removed. I decree strength into the body that has been tired for too long, rest into the mind that has not known peace, and joy into the spirit that had almost forgotten how to laugh without fear of what might come next. These are not wishes, these are decrees, and a decree spoken from the place of light does not return empty, it accomplishes the thing for which it was sent. But I must be honest with you about what stands between you and this crossing, for a true guide does not flatter, he prepares. There is a resistance that always rises at the threshold. In the very hour that heaven moves most powerfully on behalf of a soul, the old patterns make their loudest noise, precisely because they are dying and a dying thing fights hardest in its final moments. So do not be surprised if, in the coming hours, the doubt returns stronger than before, if the old fear whispers louder, if circumstances seem for a moment to worsen rather than improve. This is not a sign that the word has failed. It is the opposite. It is the final protest of what is being cast out, the last thrashing of a chain that already knows it is broken. The enemy of your soul would rather you interpret the resistance as defeat and turn back one step before the crossing, for he knows that the soul who presses through that final resistance can never be enslaved again. So when it comes, and it may come today, do not let it deceive you. Stand still, place your hand upon your heart, and remember that you were warned so that the warning itself would become your strength. Consider again the ancient road, for the pattern repeats through every generation of the chosen. Think of the man Joseph, who dreamed in his youth of a destiny so great that even his own family could not bear to hear it. And for the sin of carrying a dream too large for the small minds around him, he was thrown into a pit by the very brothers who should have protected him, sold into the hands of strangers, carried far from everything he knew, and made a servant in a foreign house. And when at last he did what was right, when he refused to betray his integrity even at great cost to himself, he was rewarded not with freedom, but with a prison cell, accused falsely, forgotten by the very people he had helped. Year after year passed in that forgotten place. He interpreted the dream of a man who promised to remember him, and that man walked free and forgot him utterly for 2 more long years. Imagine the depth of that abandonment. Imagine believing you had found the door to your deliverance, only to watch it close and leave you in the dark once more, forgotten by the one who owed you everything. If ever a soul had reason to conclude that heaven had abandoned him, that his dreams had been a cruel joke, that he was simply the kind of soul that things do not work out for, it was Joseph in that cell. But hear the turning, for it comes suddenly, the way it will come for you. In a single day, in one appointed morning after all those forgotten years, Joseph was lifted from the prison to the palace, from the dungeon to the second throne of the entire kingdom, from a forgotten prisoner to the man upon whom the survival of nations would depend. The delay had not been the death of his dream. It had been the preparation for it. For the boy who dreamed could never have governed a kingdom, but the man who had been refined by the pit and the prison could. And when his brothers, the very ones who had thrown him away, came at last and bowed before him, without recognizing the one they had betrayed, Joseph did not repay them with the destruction they deserved. He wept, and he told them the truth that heaven had shown him through all his suffering, that what they had intended for evil, the Most High had woven into good, for the saving of many lives. Do you hear it, chosen one? The very betrayals that seemed to destroy him were the threads heaven used to weave his greatness. The pit was the path, the prison was the preparation, the delay was the design. Nothing that was done against him was wasted. It was all gathered up and turned, and the length of his suffering became the measure of his elevation. So it is with you, and I decree it now. I decree that every pit into which you were thrown becomes the very ground from which you rise. I decree that every prison of circumstance in which you were forgotten becomes the place of your preparation, and that the appointed morning of your sudden lifting is drawing near. I decree that the ones who forgot you will remember you, that the ones who overlooked you will seek you, and that the very situations designed to bury you become the situations through which you are exalted. I decree that what was intended against you is being turned at this very hour into the instrument of your good and the good of many who will be saved, because you refuse to give up before the crossing. I decree that your dream, the one you buried because it hurt too much to keep it alive, is being raised from its grave. For heaven does not resurrect the dreams of the abandoned, only the dreams of the chosen, and the fact that yours is stirring again is the proof of which one you are. Sinta agora o peso dessa palavra se levantando de você, a palavra que o chamou de exceção, a palavra que disse que a bênção era para os outros, mas nunca para você. É uma mentira, e sempre foi uma mentira, e hoje ela perde o último de seu controle. Você não é aquele que o céu pulou, você é aquele que o céu guardou para o tempo determinado. Você não é o pensamento posterior. Você é aquele cuja história estava sendo escrita com tanto cuidado, tanta paciência, que não poderia ser apressada sem arruinar a obra-prima que sempre foi destinada a se tornar. Os outros que receberam rapidamente porque suas atribuições eram pequenas. A sua demorou porque a sua é grande. Deixe essa verdade se instalar no lugar mais profundo dentro de você, no mesmo lugar onde a mentira viveu por tantos anos, e deixe-a despejar a mentira e tomar seu trono, pois a verdade tem mais direito a esse lugar do que a mentira jamais teve. E assim eu digo a você agora, antes que esta palavra se feche e o silêncio retorne, que o sinal que lhe foi prometido não é algo distante, mas uma proximidade que já se inclina em sua direção. E quando você erguer os olhos para o céu hoje, você o saberá, não por argumento, mas pela súbita quietude em seu peito, a certeza silenciosa de que aquele que nada esquece, finalmente voltou seu rosto para o seu. Guarde essa promessa como guardaria uma lâmpada durante uma longa noite, porque a manhã que ela anuncia não é um talvez, é um compromisso, e o céu não perde os compromissos que faz com os escolhidos. Antes que o céu responda, faça uma coisa enquanto o fogo desta palavra ainda queima em você, pois a fé que é sentida, mas nunca agida, desaparece antes que o sinal chegue. Vá agora ao primeiro comentário, aquele fixado no topo, e abra o guia sagrado que foi colocado lá para você, as 7 espadas do Arcanjo, pois ele ensina as próprias coisas que esta voz só pôde começar a sussurrar, as regras da guerra invisível que ninguém jamais lhe explicou, o modo de cortar o que o liga, de selar o que o abençoa e de responder ao chamado que você nasceu carregando. Baixe-o agora e deixe seu comentário ser sua aliança. Escreva com suas próprias mãos: eu sou o escolhido, e baixarei o livro digital. E veja como o céu honra aqueles que se movem antes de ver. E como seu ato de fé, deixe sua marca nesta palavra para que ela possa encontrar os outros que estão chorando no escuro e esperando que o mesmo céu fale. Pressione o curtir, para que esta mensagem seja levada mais longe do que qualquer um de nós poderia levá-la sozinho. Assine, para que a voz não o perca novamente no barulho do mundo, pois você esteve perdido tempo suficiente. Compartilhe com aquele que o céu está colocando em sua mente neste exato momento, porque sua obediência pode ser o sinal que outra alma estava orando para receber. Cada um destes é uma semente, e os escolhidos não espalham sementes em solo vazio. Então levante seus olhos agora, pois a hora chegou e o céu não está mais em silêncio. O que estava enterrado em você está se levantando, o que foi tirado está voltando, e o sinal que o nomeia como lembrado já está rompendo as nuvens acima de sua cabeça. Não olhe para baixo novamente. A manhã em que você parou de acreditar é a mesma manhã que está amanhecendo, e desta vez, amado, você não a perderá.